parade is there for everyone to see, and now it's time to talk some basketball. I thought it'd be a good time to reach out to Jay Michael. Been a little while since the Wizards were involved in the 15-16 season. Of course, he is the Wizards NBA insider at CSN. You can follow his journey at JMichaelCSN out on Twitter. And the good professor at Georgetown University as well. What's going on, Jay? How's life, man?
It's actually pretty great. So the Wizards not making playoffs gave me a little bit more off time than I've had the last couple of years. So I'm doing okay. I'm doing a lot of resting and relaxing and doing more teaching. So, it's kind of slow, but I like it for you.
See, you're trying to teach, I'm trying to learn. So we got a perfect situation here. Watching this series unfold, watching these teams unfold, does it feel like the Wizards are a long way away from this or that?
Yeah, they're a long way away. I mean, everybody in the Eastern Conference is a long way away from Cleveland as long as LeBron James is still going to be there and playing at such a high level. I mean, every move that Washington has made, as well as a lot of other teams in the East, they do it all with the mind of trying to compete with Cleveland. So you see a lot of teams like the Wizards they have a lot of they focus on having a lot of tall, long wing defenders like Otto Porter and Kelly Oubre and Allen Anderson because of LeBron James. So because they know they have to throw a lot of bodies at him to defend them. So, but yeah, everybody's a long way away from beating Cleveland because let's look. The Toronto Raptors were supposedly the second best team in the NBA, and they barely challenged Cleveland in the playoffs. Won 2 games, but pretty much didn't try. So, yeah, the Wizards are a long way away from being at that level where we can talk about their chances of making the NBA Finals.
All right, so for LeBron and watching this unfold over the last couple of weeks, just some observations. I mean, you do this for a living. You're down on the court. You talk to these guys. You see what's up. It feels like nobody's talked much about LeBron in a couple of years and then winning there in that way, and all the world was focused on Golden State and focused on Steph Curry. This has been an interesting week for LeBron to sort of spike the ball, wear the Ultimate Warrior shirt, bring the trophy home. That's what all of this was about 2 years ago when he decided to do this, right?
Yeah, it sure was. Steph Curry had kind of stolen the narrative as the most exciting player. So that probably helped LeBron, quite honestly. People didn't pay as much attention to him, and that he was able to, that everybody kind of wrote him off in Cleveland. It was the new hot thing. This new style of basketball that they play, it was much more attractive basketball to watch than what you were traditionally seeing from other teams. So, look, LeBron isn't an 82 game for the regular season. And what I mean by that is there are people who say, well, he clearly should have been MVP this year. No, he shouldn't have. That's absurd. He wasn't the best player in the regular season. The best player in the regular season was Steph Curry. That's not even up for debate. But when it came to the playoffs, LeBron elevated his game. It's a little bit easier. You have to rest yourself and dial yourself back as you get older in an 82-game season because LeBron's going to be 32, I think, in December. So, the wear and tear and trying to keep that up. He's played 13 seasons in the NBA, and if you include all the playoff games, he's played like 15 seasons already.
He's played more basketball than anybody else, right? I mean, other than guys who really at this point, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then, look, and you throw in all the Olympic stuff that he does in USA basketball, the World Championships he plays, he's played a ridiculous amount of games. So I think as a result, you don't see him as dominant in the regular season. He's already won 4 regular season MVPs. That really doesn't, to me, I don't think that's as important to him. He's got to save himself because he can't do it every single game because if he puts all that energy into an 80, he's not going to be able to do what we just saw him do in the playoffs and win a championship.
Jay Michael joining us here. at Comcast Sports Mid-Atlantic. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at JMichaelCSN as well. You know, Jay, and talking about the Wizards and where they are and how you get to that level, I mean, it's very clear. LeBron chose to go back to Cleveland. They wind up being the best team. If he had picked Washington or wherever it would have been, they would have been the best team. It really is a tribute to him because there's nothing else really akin to that. Maybe you could say Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or one of those guys, but there's no baseball player that goes somewhere that instantly makes the team better. I mean, Ovechkin and Crosby and a couple of these other hockey players, yeah, I mean, do they make the team better? Sure. Is there a goalie in hockey? Sure. Soccer, I mean, I'm looking to see Messi play this week. Sure, he makes the team better. But basketball is all about, for me with the Wizards, if they don't sign Durant, they're never going to get there. Or if they don't find that kind of a player or become bad enough to get that kind of player, they're just never going to get there.
Yeah, you get kind of stuck in basketball. You kind of get stuck in the middle. You want to be either really good, like Cleveland or Golden State, to be really bad, so you can get a LeBron James or some sort of franchise.
Well, that's a pretty sick little system, though, isn't it? When you're tanking to try to get a player, but that's what it takes in that sport specifically, right?
Yeah, well, that's what Philadelphia had been doing the last couple of years. And, it hadn't. The problem is, of course, if you take that strategy and you don't draft correctly, you are. So that kind of tanking strategy, tanking to get better, is a really dangerous strategy because you end up like Philadelphia has been. Philadelphia drafted terribly. They drafted Jahlil Okafor, who was a terrible defensive player, good offensive player, but he's good, but not that great. Joel Embiid, who's been hurt forever, never got a chance to play for him. And they drafted Dario Saric from overseas, who's yet to come. And I know I'm missing another player off the top of my head who they drafted who was injured all the time. So
well, they're about to draft another guy that can't shoot, right? Literally.
Right, yeah. Yeah, if you... So, yeah, I mean, you got the picks because you tank, but where are you? If you don't draft properly, it doesn't matter. So that's why that's a dangerous that's playing Russian roulette with your franchise, and that's what they did. That's why they've now reversed course. And they fired the GM, Sam Hinkie, and they're going another direction. But that, I mean, so, yeah, in basketball, one player can change the trajectory of a team. Look, John Wall changed the trajectory of the Wizards, not the way LeBron has done for Cleveland, but he's changed them from being a 20-something win team to now a team that's a playoff team that can get to the second round, potentially the Eastern Conference Finals, but he's not LeBron James, and you can say that about everybody. So that's not going to be quite enough to make you a champion. That's kind of how it is, and that's why I believe in basketball. If you have a player who's supposed to be a star player, and, I bring up DeMarcus Cousins for the Sacramento Kings all the time because people say, well, the Wizards should get Cousins. I was like, well, if one player changes the team, why has he never led his team to more than 33 victories in 50 years in Sacramento? It's like that tells you something about he doesn't make other guys better because in basketball, you can really see if a player makes another other players better. Whereas in some of the other sports you mentioned, there's so many other pieces on the floor that or in a game, it's not quite that simple. You can have the greatest offense in the world in football, but the quarterback has nothing to do with the defense, and vice versa. So,
or you can have a running back that's special and no line to create holes for him, and that's all a part of the team game concept. But with the NBA, I mean, the closer I get to it and watching all these games in the finals, it really feels like a lot of these teams are, they're sort of San Antonio, Oklahoma, and the two we had, and then there's everybody else, and no one, and that's pretty typical. I mean, it's chalk, and I guess part of the chalk was at a 3-1 lead with Golden State. I mean, what the hell happened to them this week? I mean, they are out in the Bay Area right now just shaking their heads after 73 wins. We won't talk as much about them as we are going to talk about LeBron, but this was an all-time meltdown, really, right?
Yeah, you lose a 3-1 lead in any playoff series, but especially in NBA Finals, something that's never happened before. So, I mean, Golden State did a couple of things this year no one's done. They won the most games in the regular season, and they blew a lead in the finals that has never been blown before. So, they had a meltdown. I think they got a little bit too full of themselves and believed their own news clippings a little too much. They were up 3-1. They were dominating. I mean, honestly, I picked Golden State going into the series. I picked Golden State in 6. Of course, the way the series started, I'm like, shoot, I wouldn't be surprised if it ended in 5. So, Draymond Green's suspension, obviously, for Game 5 was I think the beginning of that change.
Did you agree with that, by the way? I mean, at some point when these issues happen, whether it's in baseball, and we saw the Machado fight 2 weeks ago, in the playoffs with the Penguins and the Capitals, there was a tit-a-tat going on there, and guys got suspended. Key guys got suspended. I don't know that the league has any recourse but to do that. The outcome, I mean, and it's very periphery fans to say, the league, at least they wanted a 7th game. Whatever your conspiracy is, they did get involved. They did interject themselves into this, and it did affect Game 5. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, they had to. I mean, look, I'm not a big fan of all these suspensions and all this, the way the game is so soft in certain ways, but they got the rules on the books for that reason. So because they got the rule on the books, they had to suspend him based on, he had gotten a warning. He already knew that he was up against it. It's not like this was just arbitrary and came out of nowhere. He knew if you get X number of flagrant fouls, then when you get, it's no different than yellow cards in soccer. If you do it again, you're suspended for the next game. It's the same thing. And so, yeah, I mean, the rules are on the books. I'm not crazy about the way the rules are, what's considered a flagrant foul, but based on what they have on the books, they had to do it. It really wasn't optional. I think the playoffs are different. I mean, we look at the playoffs from, 15, 20, 30 years ago, and I know we supposedly have evolved. I mean, the stuff that's a flagrant foul or a foul that gets you ejected or suspended now compared to then, it's laughable to see what can get you suspended. But Draymond Green's foul did, I think, change the momentum of the series. And another thing that people don't realize, and I've said this plenty of times, Steph Curry might be the MVP of the league. Draymond Green is the MVP of Golden State because he allows Curry, Klay Thompson, Harrison Barnes, all of those other guys, he allows them to get the shots that they get. He is the system. Too many people call Draymond Green a system player. You hear fans say that. I get bombarded on Twitter. Well, he's not as good as you clearly don't understand basketball because he is the system. You pull him out of that system, everything goes awry. And if he's not having a great game, usually other guys aren't having great games. It's not vice versa.
Jay Michael covers all things NBA and the Wizards at Comcast Sports Mid-Atlantic, trying to get some insights into are you shocked that Cleveland won? I mean, do you stand even all year long thinking, well, they'll be in the final, but they're not going to beat whoever comes out of the West? I mean, that was a common refrain. Did you subscribe to that? And did you think all along LeBron had another gear that was only going to be reserved for June?
Yeah, I was shocked all year. Because, look, the team that we saw that ended the last 3 games of the finals is a team I hadn't seen all year. They've always had the ability to do certain things. They got 2 special players in LeBron and Kyrie that can get buckets whenever they want. But I was always critical of them defensively. They've always been a terrible team defensively and overrated about how good they were during the regular season because when I saw them play, even when they would win games, I would see them beat teams that they would have to struggle against. And you even saw it in the Golden State series, the miscommunications on switches, not knowing, sometimes a guy will go underneath a screen and the guy popping out or the guy with the ball isn't really that good of a shooter. And they would go under and switch. And one guy would think, I should switch. The other guy would say, no, I should stay with my man. So what ends up happening? 2 guys end up staying with one person, and that one person gets to the rim for a layup. That happened repeatedly. Well, during the regular season, that happened almost every play. And they were undisciplined. I think, especially with Kyrie Irving, he was so focused on offense, and he gave non-efforts on defense. And it's not because they can't play defense. I think it's just, the issue that some players, the teams have when they feel they can turn it on and off. And I didn't like that about Cleveland. I didn't like that Cleveland beat the Washington Wizards at home this year in D.C., and they won 121 to 115 against a Wizards team that had everybody hurt. They had no Bradley Beal, and all these guys for the Wizards, like Garrett Temple, went for 20-plus points because Cleveland's defense was so bad. So that was a case of, yeah, they won, but look how they defend. And if they actually played a better team, they don't win. So I was surprised because they were that team more often than not this season. They pulled it together just enough to beat Golden State, but Golden State also cooperated and helped them. So I was shocked Cleveland was able to win this championship, but I was also shocked that Golden State became the undisciplined team in the last 3 games of this series.
Jay, with LeBron and the coaches, you sort of indicted the Cleveland defensive scheme and how they're not well coached, though, right? I mean, that was all part of LeBron. I mean, I saw a tweet after the game. Owner of the year, LeBron. Executive of the year, LeBron. Head coach of the year, LeBron. And that was the perception of all of that. But last I checked, he was bringing the trophy. After stopping off in Vegas. I mean, it worked, right? And, I deal with that a little bit here with the Orioles all the time where they're like, well, the owner can't be too bad. They were last place for a decade and a half. The owner sucks. I mean, the fact that they're winning now, isn't because he's doing anything differently. It's just because they have better players at this point. When you say they won and you can indict Lou, the system, Gilbert, one-man show, all of that. But Irving did hit some big shots in the final week, and he was obviously a big part of, LeBron leaving is part of his story about how he got there, right?
Yeah, no, Kyrie played, fantastic. I thought what Kyrie did so well was that instead of, if you looked at the beginning of that series, you saw Kyrie Irving dominating the basketball. I post clips throughout the games of bad decision-making or even really good decision-making both teams make. And I had plenty on Kyrie dancing with the basketball, sucking the air out of the ball, the shot clock's winding down, and you see 4 players watching him. And it usually resulted in a terrible shot or a low-percentage shot and a long rebound that put Golden State in transition that led to them getting transition three-pointer. Okay? So, but you saw towards the end of the series that when Kyrie isolated to take his one-on-one move, when he got a mismatch, number one, he went quicker. He didn't dribble out the clock. He may dribble a little bit, but he went faster, and he got a higher percentage shot. And it was within the rhythm of the offense. It wasn't 4 guys watching, and other guys were moving without the ball. It just, to me, I thought his decision-making was better. He knew when to say when. There's a time to isolate and clear out and tell everybody, get out of your way, and there are times not to do that. And Kyrie, he cut down on that. And as a result, and you saw LeBron cut down on that. LeBron was isolating a lot, too, earlier in the series and getting double and triple teamed even. And by the time he tried to pass out, it was too late in the shot clock. So I just thought the decision-making that both of them made was a lot better offensively. And maybe what that helped them do is be better defensively. Some guys, their offense affects their defense. If they're not going well offensively, they're disengaged defensively. So I think that was more the issue with them. The pieces that they put together, look, the team should have gotten to this point, given the money that Dan Gilbert has spent on this roster. I still contend that you could have built a championship roster. You could have built a team that beat Golden State without giving Kevin Love $22.6 million a year. There are players out there who you can get who can do what Kevin Love does without having to pay them $22.6 million and become a luxury tax team. It's not really necessary. Love played a great Game 7, and I know a lot of people were complimenting Love on a Game 7, but out of 7 games in the series, he had 1 good game. That's not a $22.6 million a year player. So it's decisions like that. So, yeah, LeBron built a good team, or Dan Gilbert built a good team, however you call it, spin it. But they could have done it in a little bit more fiscal way, I believe, and still gotten the same result.
Jay Michael can be followed at JMichaelCSN out on Twitter, and of course at Comcast Sports Mid-Atlantic. It's funny you talk about their defense and Cleveland's deficiencies in that department. And even LeBron, who's is going to score 40,000 points before it's all over with, already got 26,000 points. If there's a statue built in Cleveland to that win, and that's the only one they ever get, it'll really be about a block, right? And you kind of got the feeling, and I remember Ray Lewis going sideline to sideline back in his young days. You kind of got a feeling that no one was going to outrun him on any given day, and you kind of get the feeling that if LeBron's trying, no one could get a shot off if he were in the vicinity, right? Like if he tried on every play that hard, and I know that's not going to happen at 31, 32 years of age, that he's still sort of otherworldly in that way, and the defensive play will be what he's known for in Cleveland when it comes to that championship in Game 7, where Michael Jordan hit the big shot against Utah and against Cleveland and everybody else, quite frankly. This was a defensive thing, and that's kind of an interesting exclamation point for LeBron. That's something that he hasn't done to win a championship.
Yeah, that's going to be, they got with the drive in football that killed him with John Elway, the fumble with Ernest Biner, and the shot by Michael Jordan, but now they got the block, but it's going to be actually something good that people in Cleveland can think about, the block that LeBron James had on Iguodala. So that was a fantastic play. It is a play that he could make. But, that play is a perfect example of, when LeBron is keyed, tuned in, and he's hustling, it's going to be tough to get past this guy. I mean, he's 6'8". He can run like as fast as Allen Iverson, but he's got the size of Karl Malone. I mean, and the athleticism of one of these guys, just jump out of the building, and that's what makes LeBron so hard of a cover for so many guys, because there's guys who can defend very well who are 6'7", 6'8", but they're not that big and that strong. And there's some guys who can defend him speed-wise, but there's a huge height differential. So LeBron doesn't, make sure people understand, LeBron is not the defensive player now that he used to be. There's a frequent misconception that he had such a good reputation of being a great defender early in his career, which he was.
Defense is hard work. Defense doesn't age well like that, especially against speed, right?
Right, exactly. And it's when I talked about the 82-game season, he's got to pick his spots when he can defend, because Draymond Green, what goes overlooked in that game is Draymond Green roasted him for 32 points. He got past LeBron off the dribble. Draymond Green isn't the biggest, most quickest guy you've ever seen. There were plays where he just blew by LeBron off the dribble and got to the rim. And that's because LeBron's individual defense, and that was a case of Cleveland's defense as a team as well. LeBron's individual defense isn't that great. Kyrie's individual defense is pretty much terrible. But that's when you have the proper rotations from your back line to help cover the rim. They don't always do that. So in individual D, I still think LeBron is falling way off. But he can still make plays. He can defend in those key moments. I think he can maybe get some things done, and he can run down the floor like he did on that play and get a help side block shot. That's where he's most valuable now, more so than one-on-one situations.
Oh, so what happens to the Warriors now, right? I mean, they go back with their tail between their legs. It's almost like they didn't win last year now, right? It's almost like they take that one away from you, right?
Yeah, they had a historical season winning 73 games. So now, look, I never thought they were better than Jordan's 72 Bulls, regardless if they won another championship or not. But for anybody who did think that was the case, that argument is obviously dead and gone. But yeah, this is the second finals in a row that Steph Curry hasn't really looked like Steph Curry. And Draymond Green played great. So people, like I just said, people who call Draymond Green a system player, Draymond Green looked really good each time. So I don't think you would call it. You could argue that maybe it's Steph Curry that's the system guy.
It's funny, but Draymond's not playing the role of the GOAT, right? It's Curry, and it's really Draymond who did the stupid thing in Game 4 that cost him a chance to be on the floor in Game 5. And Cleveland's still feeling sorry for itself if that probably happened, right?
Right, exactly. I think there's no doubt. I think they closed out the series in 5 because the series went back to Oakland for Game 5. A closeout game. Cleveland's down 3-1. Draymond is already he was in LeBron's head at that point. It's just, it's something. It's amazing that something that small, that minor, or what appears to be that small and minor, can basically flip a 3-1 series. But I still think people are going to look at Steph Curry for the second NBA Finals in a row. Didn't play especially well. That pass that Curry had in the fourth quarter behind his back to Klay Thompson that went out of bounds was inexplicable. Like, you're in the last 2 minutes of a game that's tied, and you throw a behind-the-back pass.
Not a game. Game 7 of the
yes.
Not a game, right, exactly.
To me, I look at that play, I was like, oh, my God, they're about to lose. Like, who does that? It's things like that. So it's not just Curry missing shots. It's some of his decision-making just blew my mind.
He played so loose that it was too loose, right?
It was unbelievable. It's like it was an all-star game. And it's like, you don't do that in Game 7. And it's things like that finally caught up to him. And, and I think this is going to be a hard offseason for a lot of more questions about Steph Curry. Harrison Barnes, I don't know how can I get through this conversation without mentioning Harrison Barnes, who should be forced to do a walk of shame down Oakland and have people just throw stuff at him, because that was as listless of a performance I have ever seen from a guy. Harrison Barnes is about to be an unrestricted free agent because he turned down a $64 million deal from Golden State before the season because he thinks he's going to get a max. And a lot of people, myself included, thought he was going to get a max contract, which is, $20-something million a year, that he would get a max contract. Well, let's see. In Game 5, when Draymond was suspended, Harrison Barnes scored 5 points. In Game 6, Harrison Barnes scored 0 points. A starting small forward. He scored 5 points in 2 games. And in Game 7, he scored 10 points. Whoop-de-damn-do. But he shot 3 of 10. So he scored 15 points in 3 games, the 3 games that Golden State lost to end the series. He shot 5 of 32 from the field. Unbelievable. And now you're telling me, because a lot of people in D.C. love Harrison Barnes because he was on the board when the Wizards drafted in 2012, and they chose Bradley Beal instead. And I know for a fact that if Bradley Beal would have been taken at number 2, the Wizards would have taken Harrison Barnes because they needed a shooter. But I think you see the kind of player that Barnes is. He's 6'8". He's physically strong. He has a good three-point stroke. He looks like he should be a really good player, a special player. But he often disappears in big games. He always has. He's had 4 years. How can you perform that way in an NBA Finals on the biggest stage and then tell me, if I'm another GM for another team, I want $22 million a year because I believe I'm a max player? There is no way in hell I'm giving him that kind of money. And I'm actually, if Harrison Barnes just shows up, Nestor, and gets 15 points in those games, which is, that's not asking too much, Golden State wins the series easily because he's left wide open because there was so much tension given to Curry and Klay Thompson. That's why Draymond Green had all those open looks in Game 7. Well, Harrison Barnes had a bunch of open looks, and he missed most of them. And I think he's out of Golden State as a result. They're going to let him walk. Why would you pay a guy like that $100 million?
Well, it's going to be an interesting offseason there, and certainly for Cleveland, they're going to be enjoying themselves. What's up with the Wizards real quick? I mean, give me a little offseason primer in 30 seconds or less.
The Wizards will have anywhere from 8 to 9 spots left in free agency. They have been brought guys through a bunch of workouts, even though they don't have any draft picks. I think there's a good chance that they buy into the second round of the draft to try to get a player late in the draft. And, then what comes up next after this is they get Summer League. Free agency opens July 1st. Summer League begins July 8th, and it ends July 18th in Las Vegas. And probably by middle of July, we should kind of have an idea what the roster looks like. Then there'll be a huge dead period, Olympics and whatnot. And then we'll go into training camp after about another month and a half or 2 months at the end of September to get ready for the 2016-17 season. But they got a lot of moves and a lot of decisions to make. I don't think Kevin Durant's going to be one of those decisions. So without him, They got to figure out how they rebuild this roster with all those roster spots. There's a lot of good players out there, but I don't expect them to get a superstar player who's going to make everybody go, wow.
Jay Michael makes us go wow on Comcast Sports Mid-Atlantic. You can follow his journey at JMichaelCSN. Tell you what, man, you need to get a towel and hit whatever beach that is on the front of your Twitter page, man.
I think that's from the Bay Area, if I'm not mistaken.
All right, you thought they were going to win a championship out there. You can go out there and salve their wounds.
Yeah. Man, you got that right.
Lost the Stanley Cup and lost the NBA in 1 week. Anything that brings parades to Pittsburgh and Cleveland doesn't warm the heart of a Baltimore guy, Jay Michael, you know?
I forgot. Yeah, you don't like Pittsburgh. The Penguins, yeah.
It's been a rough spring for me, Jay. What do you want me to say, right?
I'll leave you with this nugget. I love the Penguins. So people in D.C. hate that, but I do. I love the Penguins.
You're just agitating me now, all right, after half an hour. Hey, man, enjoy your summer. Great having you on again.
Hey, likewise. Good to talk to you.
You got it. Jay Michael, CSN, the way to find him out on Twitter. And he's also a Comcast Sports Mid-Atlantic, of course, covering the NBA and the Wizards. Always good to have him aboard. We got plenty of great stuff out in the Bahia Toyota Audio Vault off of Game 7 and off the Cleveland Championship. We've gone to the Bay Area, out to Cleveland, talked to Michael Regai and a bunch of others. We'll be doing that all week long here as we monitor the Orioles. Back at home now, Padres, and, of course, the Rays this weekend. Luke Jones will be on the scene down there with all of the updates, especially out in our social media. You can email me anytime, nasty@WNST.net, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, anywhere you are. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Taos in Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.